Welcome to Decode It, a podcast series helping understand more about computer technologies and its beginnings. I'm Ashley Griffin, involved in IT from the 1980s, first with the Atari ST, then on to computer networks in the early 1990s. Today's episode of Decode It is about the FTP server, File Transfer Protocol. It was invented in the 16th of April 1971. It was primarily used to move data between PCs or a PC and a server. So predating the File Explorer or any operating system that had some sort of graphical user interface, you still needed to get data between those PCs, and this is how they did it. They invented a service that would store those files and allow a client PC to log into that server and pull the file that it wanted, predating any mobile storage medium. It worked on a network, so it would primarily first use the network layer NCP, which was Network Control Protocol. That predated TCP/IP by about 9 years. The FTP server employed the use of two data ports, so it was port 21 to initiate the connection and port 20 to move the data. And its reason for that was the NCP protocol was unidirectional, so you couldn't use one port for sending and receiving data. So the PC would initiate the connection on port 21 and then would receive the data by connecting to port 20 to actually pull the actual file that it wanted. The FTP server had security, so you would log into it with a username and password. It could also do anonymous, so you could just log into it and it would show you the files that it would allow access to without a username password. Back at that time, there was no encryption, so all of this would have been done in clear, unencrypted connectivity methods across the network. In 1981, they kind of cut that back to TFTP, and this was covered in our DNS episode. It stands for Trivial File Transfer Protocol. It's an FTP server that's highly stripped back. Its primary role was used in bootstrap environment, so when you were using DHCP or BootP, and those terminals that did not have an operating system within them and they needed to download that from the network, you would use a TFTP server because it generally just shared the file, like the boot file, and got that across the network. The FTP server was further updated in October 1985. Then in February 1994, it supported a passive connection to allow it to tunnel through firewalls that were securing the perimeter of a PC. So that allowed the PC to connect back out to the FTP server through a firewall. So you didn't need to specifically open up all those ports on your local PC. It then also had security extension updates on June 1997, and then in September 1998 it supported IP version 6. Some of the updates to the FTP server included the ability of moving the data securely, either via SSL or TLS, so that will be secure socket layer or transport layer security. Generally, though, that was only the data connection itself, not the command connection to connect to the server. And that being an issue, the browsers of Chrome and Firefox decided to delete or deprecate the connections in 2021. Previous that time, you could put in a URL of such as ftp:// and then the IP address of the FTP server or domain name, and it would list the directory so you could download it via the browser. To further secure the FTP server, they allowed FTP to be used via the SSH protocol, which stands for Secured Shell. Now that's connecting with the secured shell layer and then using FTP over that. A lot of newer appliances are still leveraging FTP, generally wrap that in SSH. And wrapping it in SSH means that the connection is totally secure. I see SSH FTP used a lot in appliances for backup. And we do have an SSH FTP server running for clients to back up their appliances to that. FTP clients are still included with operating systems, Linux, Mac and Windows. You can still use them within the command or the DOS. You can also get an FTP client in GUI, so within Windows or Mac. One of the big ones is FileZilla. FileZilla will support security, so it does support SSL and TLS. However, it does not support SSH. So if you need to get to an SSH FTP server, you can't use some of the GUI clients. I still use a lot of DOS command FTP connections. There are quite a few network related cards that still fall back to FTP to do firmware updating. It's a very robust protocol. It works very, very well. It's been around so long, the standards are very much in place. And some of the UPS network cards, I've generally have to use FTP to update the firmware on those in stages, sometimes 1 to 3 stages, and each stage the card will then reboot and then it's expecting another FTP connection. It's robust, it works, it's as I say, it's in a lot of appliances for backup. Other than that, you don't really get to go near it and you don't really see it either. Rarely do you need an FTP server, and a lot of manufacturers don't deploy them anymore. A lot of them used to have it. I know Hewlett-Packard used to have theirs. Adobe used to have them as well. A lot of that's moved to HTTP now. Thank you for spending some time with me. Subscribe to see more in the Decode It series.